An MMO in your 30s sounds less like a hobby, more like a second job. So, what happens when you take an MMO and combine it with a game series known for incredibly narrative-heavy, sweeping epics and a cast of characters who use more hair product than an early 2000s boy band? Sounds like it doesn't fit, right? Well, let's find out. Hi, I'm Dave from Can It Casual. Like you, I've only got a few hours a week to play games, so I want to make sure it counts. On this channel, I play one game for 2 hours a night over 5 nights, and at the end I answer one very simple question. Can it casual? Before we begin, a little context for you, dear viewer. I have played Final Fantasy XIV before. It was my COVID MMO, for lack of a better phrase. I mainlined this thing so hard, completing every single quest grind, in some cases mere weeks before they removed it for better pacing, that when I ended up hitting max level, I was burnt out. Without even realizing it, I ended up never going back. So, with that in mind, and after a recent chat with a friend about this game, I thought, you know what? I wonder if it would fit into my more normal-looking life. And I decided, rather than messing around trying to work out what I was doing with my old account, why don't we start fresh? The free trial promises content literally up to where I'd reached previously, so it felt like a perfect fit, and it was at this point I encountered Final Fantasy XIV's hardest and most infuriating boss, account creation. My first session with this game was spent pulling my hair out, borderline yelling at the screen because no matter what I did, the launcher kept telling me my password was incorrect. I reset that thing so many times, I was worried Gmail was going to block Square Enix for spam. I tried uninstalling and reinstalling the launcher multiple times. I googled the problem repeatedly only to find threads of people smugly telling me it was my problem and it works fine for them. I could log into the website with my credentials, but not the launcher. It was infuriating, and I very nearly abandoned this whole project. But then I worked it out. That damned optional entry for two-factor authentication is not optional at all. At no point anywhere in the entire process did it tell me I needed to install an authenticator, constantly referring to it as optional, but on a Hail Mary attempt at fixing it, I installed one and lo and behold, I was allowed in, to immediately be greeted by a 2-hour download. I have a strong, stable connection, but apparently that meant nothing. 2 hours it was. Well played, Square Enix. You win this round. Not a great start. And honestly, if it wasn't for this channel, I probably would have stopped there. But the next evening, I gave it one more shot. The install appeared to go ahead without issue, and armed with my new authenticator, I was able to get straight into the game. Those of you familiar with my videos know what's coming. We hit the character creator. With 8 races to pick from, each with 2 variants, there is a lot on offer. It took me about 30 minutes in the end to create my new hero, and once I'd finally settled on a voice, which I'm pretty sure I'm still yet to hear, he was off. FF14 doesn't really feel like an MMO with story elements. It feels like a JRPG where occasionally other players will run past. It's unique in its approach to storytelling. While I tend to prefer a world where you're just a person existing in it, in FF14 you are most definitely the main character, undoubtedly the chosen one. Other players do not exist in this world, until they do. This is very much a solo-focused game. At the start of your journey, other players simply populate the cities you adventure through. As you progress though, this does begin to change. FF14 has a large number of mechanics for you to interact with, but it gates them all behind progression through the main storyline. This does a lot for reducing any chance of overwhelming you as you get to grips with the game, but it can lead to it feeling like a very slow burn. It took until my 3rd session with the game, so about 6 hours in, before I actually had the opportunity to play the game with other players. Yes, I know I had the option to speak to anybody at any time. But when it comes to actually playing the game itself, there had been no reason to up until that point. I really like the fact that the game encourages you to progress through these group mechanics. My concern that this was a solo game melted away when the main story forced me into a group. It was here another system appeared which I hadn't seen before. NPC groups. I initially wasn't sure how I felt about it, but after giving it a go, I can safely say I'm sold. My recommendation to everybody new playing this game is use the NPC group the first time you go in any dungeon. They are perfectly capable of assisting you in completing it. They won't get impatient when you want to explore the entire thing and clear every mob, and they'll also allow you to solve all the puzzles, watch all the cutscenes, and generally get the full dungeon experience. This doesn't mean I think you shouldn't group with players either. On the contrary, I had forgotten just how warm and welcoming this community is. Every time you join a group, people say hello and are willing to answer questions, and every time you finish the instance, they say thank you and goodbye. It's a really nice place to be. The only reason I suggest the NPC route first is familiarity breeds optimization, and optimization clashes with the new player experience. Nobody really likes being a passenger in these games. It's hard to feel immersed in a dungeon when everybody else stopped seeing it as a place years ago. Using the NPC groups for your first run gives you the option to truly experience the dungeon. Then, when you're ready to do it again, you can party up with players who'll just steamroll through it. It's not a bad thing that they do that. It's just not the first experience I think you should have. Also, the way the game's content remains relevant due to its level sync system means that every queue for a dungeon is relatively short. Yes, you big-brained viewers will be quick to point out that I'm playing a tank role, so of course my queues are fast. But I prepared for that. Final Fantasy XIV has a multi-class system, and because I knew that queue point would come up, I made my hero into a wizard just to prove it. And, yeah, it went exactly as you'd expect. It took me longer to get into dungeons, but not much longer. Each queue popped in less time than estimated, and that timer never went over 8 minutes. Also, the aforementioned NPC groups pop instantly, so you can make the call on either getting straight in and taking longer, or waiting longer and steamrolling through. Final Fantasy XIV just seems to fit a more casual approach. I worked out that I was progressing at a great pace just doing the MSQ, my class quest, and the dungeons as they appeared. I think I finished my last session as a level 25 gladiator, 10 levels higher than the MSQ requirement. I did need to train myself out of the complete everything mindset, but that was helped by the multi-class system. Because every class levels separately, leaving quests behind actually gives me meaningful things to do later when I decide to try something new. It feels good to drop in, do some main story, maybe a dungeon or two, all within a window of time where you are progressing despite only making a relatively light investment. I was always looking forward to my next session when I finished playing. A couple of times I looked up and my timer had already gone off. Now I will say that the game does feel quite easy. It's not the worst thing, but I do have the concern about it holding my interest long term. I can pull multiple mobs, both in the open world and in the dungeon, and feel little threat. I know it's a large game, and I'm only roughly 10 hours in, but I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't point out that it could potentially feel stale if you find it too easy. And if we're being picky, there is one other thing to point out. My friends and I very affectionately refer to this game as Weeb Sim, but I really think we should probably change that to Read Sim. There is so much text, to the point where I'm asking myself, am I playing a game or am I reading a book? There are also these jarring moments between voiced cutscenes and not voiced cutscenes. I know this is likely a setback of just the base game, but the smattering of voice acting that does appear is not great either.
Damn it all to the seventh hell!
Ultimately, if you've only got limited time, is this something you've got the energy for? Oh, and my biggest bugbear with the game is that it is not available on any streaming service. This means I've been running this thing on my 10-year-old machine, and bless her, she's kept the gameplay running silky smooth, but my goodness, the loading. Does she struggle there? There are so many back and forth quests. I spend so much time staring at a black screen with just a location written across the front of it. And there are times I spawn into an area and I'm the only thing that has. I've run past quest markers because the NPC hasn't even loaded in yet, so I've either been lost or I've had to backtrack. I know it's a me problem, but if you're rocking old tech too, it's worth knowing. So, when all's said and done, can Final Fantasy XIV casual? Yes, but only if you accept it for what it is. This game is slowly paced with a very heavy story focus. It asks you for patience rather than mechanical skills, with a gradual progression towards the rest of the player base. In return, however, it'll give you a great warm welcome, low pressure, and a gameplay loop that fits really nicely into a limited time frame. And it never felt like I was being punished for only showing up casually. For a genre known for consuming people whole, Final Fantasy XIV is surprisingly comfortable just being part of your week. So what do you say? Are you ready to walk in the light of the crystal? Thanks for watching. Are you playing Final Fantasy XIV? What keeps you going? If you've not played before, does this look like something you could fit into your schedule? Either way, let me know what games you'd like to see next, and I'll see you next time.
It isn't the love of a hero, and that's why I feel